Alrighty, welcome everyone back to Millennial TheraMom. I'm so excited for us to be continuing our maternal mental health special here on the channel and on through all the podcast, whether you're listening on Apple, on Spotify, or YouTube. I'm just happy that you're here and celebrating this month with us. And something that I think is really important that we don't often talk about is the parenting side of postpartum, right? Though postpartum, a lot of it is adjusting and to who am I as a parent, as a mom. There still can be parallel processes happening. It happened for me at least when my daughter was becoming a toddler, like the 1.5 range was like, oh my gosh, all these big feelings, and then realizing how do I want to parent these big feelings? Because it's parenting a whole another person with big feelings while we're having big feelings ourselves, which is why I'm a big proponent of even before you become a parent, learning how to regulate your own feelings, learning how to meet yourself with compassion and understanding and all that, because it truly, I just do think takes an overflow of that from us to be able to meet our kids where they're at. But I'm gonna have Patricia speak a little bit more about that. This is her jam. She is a therapist, she is a coach, she is so many things. But I'll let her speak on whatever you want to share about the work that you do and how you got there.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on here. I'm just realizing this is like my first YouTube,
Yay.
interview type of thing. So thanks for having me on. Hi everyone. My name's Patricia. I am a licensed clinical social worker in California, providing psychotherapy services. I specialize in three areas. The main one is on trauma work. And from that, I've honed into parenting support. So really just focusing in on parents' mental health because when you become a parent, like you said, Joanna, it just really opens up a lot of maybe old wounds or anxieties about just comparing yourself to the way you were raised, and it could add a lot of pressure. So it's a very pivotal time in your life where you need support. So that's what I'm here for, to just help you break certain cycles if that's what you're interested in, especially if you're first gen, because that's a whole other arena to work with. So it's been definitely a pleasure. And then my third specialty, which isn't too relevant on here, but I just thought I'd throw it in there, is on psychological immigration evaluation. So these are for families that are working on immigration relief cases, and they might need an evaluation on how their mental health is impacted. So that they could remain here, really, just to, with everything that's going on too, it's just definitely a needed thing. But yeah, so part of my background is that I've been working with families since 2008 after my bachelor's. So I'll let y'all do the math on that. And just working with kids and their behaviors, especially kids who've had tantrums. And during my time there and working in community mental health, going to people's homes, doing that, I definitely got my inspiration into going into more deeper work and becoming a psychotherapist, becoming a clinical social worker. Because what I noticed was that when I worked more collaboratively with the parents, that there was more meaningful and lasting change in the home. Especially when parents were willing to kind of look at parts of themselves. So, that's what kind of inspired me into my career that I'm in today. It's definitely an honor and a privilege. And yeah, that's a little bit of what I do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I
Yeah.
think that's what I love about the mental health field too, is that you start with it knowing like I want to help people in some way, and then you realize once you're in it, there's so many different ways, so many different approaches to
Yeah.
therapy, to teaching, to just providing people support where they're at. And I wanted to see if you could also share a little bit, because I know this isn't a question I sent, but a little bit about the workshops that you've been a part of, that you do and teach. Can you just share a little bit about that?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot about that. Yes. So at this point, I'm trying to reach more people as far as the difference that could be made in the home. So one of the main workshops that I'm working on currently is a chaos to connection workshop. So this is to help equip parents with how to deal with those big feelings, how to break cycles, basically, as far as like, you know, not wanting to pass certain parenting tactics that were passed on to you. If you have that insight, but you're not sure where to start, this would be a great workshop just to get the fundamentals. So, one thing I want to make clear is it's not therapy, it's not group therapy, it's nothing clinical, no one's getting a diagnosis, but you're going to learn some basic skills about co-regulation, children's brain development, ways to decode their behaviors and even decode your own triggers. So I'm really excited about it because it's got a lot of golden nuggets in there as far as like places to start as a parent. There's even before and after videos of a tantrum and a certain parenting approach that might not be the most effective versus another one, and seeing the outcome with that. So I'm really excited about it. It's still in the works. Um, and yeah, I'll be announcing soon when the dates are available.
Yes, yes. And just want to make sure. We usually do this at the end, but since you
Yeah.
already shared about that, can you share where people can follow you as well?
Yes, yes. So currently I have a private practice under Sana Therapy. So as you can hear from the title, it's very culturally coded.
Mhm.
It's really all about that healing and especially bringing it into the home. So you could follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm mostly active on, just looking up Sana Therapy. You'll find me there. And on there, I'll just put in like little tidbits on educational pieces. Obviously, social media is not a place for therapy, so it's never going to be a replacement for therapy or therapy advice. But you can find me on there mainly, and there's my website. I'm also offering free consultations. If you're not sure where to start with the help that you're looking for, I'd be happy to help and connect.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that because 100% like I often say, and actually just said in an interview I recorded earlier, it's about the collective, right? Like there's so
Yeah,
much healing that happens with community and connections to others, but it's also even as individual therapists, we ourselves
yeah,
know that I don't have all the skill sets. I possibly couldn't have all the knowledge to help you, but I
yeah,
have people that I'm like, oh, okay, like I have a friend or I have a colleague who is doing this kind of workshop or loves this kind of
yeah,
stuff. So that's why I love being able to highlight some of like the other hats that we wear too, not just as like let's say therapists, but like as educators or whatever
mhm.
else you have. So thank you for sharing about that. So
Thank
we
you.
are speaking to a lot. Oh, sorry, did you want to share something?
Oh, no, no, no. I was just backing what you said.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I know a lot of the times people might discover my platform or page because of the postpartum, but I always wanted to be clear that this work might start for you in pregnancy or postpartum, but parenting
yeah,
is a lifetime work, and
yeah.
especially when we talk about cycles, right? Like this is just the way that I was raised, but then you start to notice like, ooh, do I want to tell my kid, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about? Or
Yeah,
well, if I don't say that, what else do I say, right? And
yeah.
I'm speaking from somebody who's in the middle of two. So my daughter's almost 2.5, and the big feelings are big. But I'm
Hmm.
grateful to have also had that community mental health work and background where I
Yeah,
know that there are certain things that little kids struggle with, big feelings, emotional regulation, all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
So it's normal if this is hard, but
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be a reflection of ourselves, right? It could be how do we help create some space between what our kid is going through and then what we're going through to meet them where
Yeah,
they're at. So when it comes to like the big feelings that come with older kids, could you just, well, let me just start with the disclaimer. It's normal
yeah.
to become overwhelmed by big feelings, by meltdowns,
100%.
by other behaviors. There are
Hmm.
probably multiple layers from our nervous system being sensitive to
Yes.
certain sounds and all of that. And then like
Mhm.
deeper stuff like, oh, I was never nurtured in a way, or no one asked me, are we sad, or whatever it might be.
Yes, yes,
So
yeah.
there's layers to it. So can you
Hmm.
share a little bit just what's happening developmentally when kids have these big feelings and any other thing related to it?
No, this is great. I really like how you said it. It's not because we're doing anything wrong. And I want to make it clear, just because I'm a trauma therapist and you're having a hard time with like a 2-year-old, that doesn't mean that like you necessarily had this trauma and that's why you're having a hard time. It's like, no, no, no. All kids, all little humans are by default gonna have like tantrums, big feelings. They're gonna test you for sure. And from a developmental standpoint, it all really makes sense. So just starting with the education on the basics might help lighten the load of the pressure that we put on ourselves as parents. So you could get like a better understanding where this is coming from. So um, yeah, so ranging from toddlerhood to, teenagehood and shoot, even like early adulthood, there's the part of our brain that is in charge of executive functioning skills, which is a fancy term for all our logical thinking, our impulse control, our ability to make like clear decisions where we just kind of know what is right and wrong, and so to speak. Um, that part of our brain is actually not fully developed until we're like in our 20s, sometimes even 30s, depending on like everyone's position in life or whatever's going on. So with that said, you got to look at your little ones as like, man, they got a long road ahead of them with everything. You could even see it in their bodies, right? They're short, they're cute, they're chubby or whatever, right? It's like the brain is in its own way this small little thing it's not to say that they're not smart. Of course they're smart, but they're just learning about the world. And so that going back to that part of the brain that's like in charge of logic and executive functioning, it's not fully developed, but what's more developed is the amygdala. So that's the part that is all about our emotions, our impulses. From a fight or flight place, it's like from a trauma place, it's like fight or flight, how you react rather than respond. And it quite literally takes over. It takes over. Your kids aren't making the decision to act out. They're not, trying to have a tantrum over like the wrong snack that you gave them, because that happens. They say they want a banana, you give them a banana, then they melt down. They're like, no, I want it like peeled, or you didn't cut it. And it's like a tragedy. And they're just rolling on the floor. And it's really, they're not making the choice to be like, oh, how am I going to give my mom a hard time today? It's like for them, it just feels very raw. That's where their brains are. So if you can start looking at it from like that mindset, hopefully, and this is the message I'm trying to give out, is that it puts less pressure on you and it helps you kind of stay regulated in those moments that get very loud.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. I literally had that moment yesterday. You driving because my daughter didn't want to wear a buckle while I was driving, and she
Oh,
wanted me
fun.
to pick her up while I was driving. And I was like,
No.
so I had to eventually, because I think like many of us and the way that a lot of other generations were parented us was like talking, right? Like, stop crying, that doesn't make any sense. Or like, don't you see, or whatever it might be talking at us. But as we are aware of, like that part of the brain that has to do with this back and forth understanding, it's offline when those
Hmm.
big feelings happen. Like I remember in
Yeah.
community mental health, the flip lid, right? Like
Yes.
the rational thinking, like, oh,
Hmm.
mom's driving, so she can't pick me up. That is
Mm-mm.
like out the
Out
window.
the window.
Out the
Yes.
so for me in that moment, it was like maybe a 7 minute drive that was gonna be to get back home. So I just had to remind myself, like, okay, I can try to maybe soothe her. I mean, like, we're driving home. I can't pick you up. But once I noticed like she's not registering anything, for
Yeah.
me, it was like I just need to breathe through this moment, remind myself that this is not about me, that my kid isn't being a bad kid. She's just having a hard time, and that
Yeah.
this will pass. We'll get
Mhm.
home. Like, but I just have to focus on being safe because it's really
Yes.
hard to drive through a tantrum.
Oh
I,
my gosh. I was there yesterday too.
yeah,
Yes.
I see people
Mhm.
completely different now because I'm like, we never know. Maybe they're driving like that because they have a screaming toddler in the back, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I have more grace for drivers now. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah,
I still get kind of irked, but it's like, okay,
but
you
you're
never know.
patient. Yeah, give
They should have
compassion, give
signs on
grace.
the back, like with baby on board, it's like tantrum on board.
Yeah,
Like,
that I'm on board. I'm doing my best. But
yeah.
notice that the light is green, and like sometimes speaking things out when I'm notice my nervous system is like I'm getting dysregulated because tantrums
Yeah.
dysregulating for the human body too. And be like, all right, green light, it's green. I'm gonna keep going. Okay, I'm gonna turn
Yeah.
left because it grounds me to the present moment versus
Yeah.
like I think what I see sometimes when people are driving and they run through a red light, right? And it's
Oh
clear.
yeah.
Sometimes it's clear that they didn't even realize it, and like, oh, maybe they were distracted by something, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. And it's like that can happen to us if we're specific, like
That's
really
scary. Yeah.
dysregulated. So
Yeah.
learning how to bring calm to our body when there's not calm out there.
Yeah, yeah. And now that you say it, I say certain things like, and you know, it's not really about getting them to calm down because it's interesting. You know, the signs when that logic is out the window. Face is turning red. They're screaming bloody murder like someone's hurting them. And I'm like, I'm not hurting you, while you're driving. But it's like, I have to keep us safe. I have to look out for other cars. You're really sad because and she had like this little stuffy that she wanted, and it's like, and I can't get that for you right now because I'm driving. And so it's not really about getting it to stop, but it's also to remind yourself, like, I am doing this. I'm seeing the light turning green to keep you grounded on what's important because yes, while our kids' feelings are important and we want to be there, sometimes we kind of have to realize what we got to prioritize, and that's the safety in the car, right? So it's like, no, and like, yeah, I know you want to take off the seatbelt, but right now we can't.
Mhm.
And, you know, it would be nice if we could wave a magic wand and they could be like, okay, mommy, but the truth is it
Yeah.
might piss them off even more. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's okay because it's you're not really doing it for them. You're in a sense you're doing it for yourself. It's almost like an affirmation, like I'm keeping us safe right now. So this
Yeah.
is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Breathing. And then I have to like turn down the volume, like no music. There's nothing. It's just
Hmm.
breathing and screaming and be like, we're getting home. So
We're getting home one way or another.
yeah.
Yeah.
So just like that normalizing that validation, like it's
Hmm.
okay if those moments are hard because they're hard for even licensed therapists,
Oh
like
yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
make us not human, doesn't make us like our nervous system is not any more special.
Mm-mm.
It's the
Not
same
by the
one.
stretch. Yeah.
So just like giving yourself that grace of like, okay, what do I need in this moment? And sometimes it means not giving in, right? Because I think a lot of
Hmm.
times that's a very quick response. Like if I'm just gonna do whatever it is that my
Hmm.
kid wants to stop the crying. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, all right, I'm gonna give you that candy, whatever, whatever. Sometimes it's like, no, I love you, but no,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get us there safely. And that's
Yeah.
okay too.
Yeah.
You're not a bad parent for not being like my daughter too. There's this toy that she likes, and sometimes it ends up underneath the passenger side, and she's like, I want
Oh.
it. And I'm like, I'm not about to risk both of our lives to try to bend down there,
Hmm.
you
Or
know?
they throw it and then they want it back, and I'm like, I can't do that. Next time, hold on to
Yeah.
it. And so
Exactly. So they're
yeah.
learning, we're learning, and I think it's good for them to know, like, I don't always get what I want, but
Mm-mm.
yeah, my
Yeah.
parent tries to be present or is there or whatever it might be. They won't have the
Yeah.
words for that now. It'll be a sensed feeling, that attachment.
Mm-mm.
But
Yeah.
related to that, what are some practical ways? I know we talked about some ways, but what are some other practical ways that we can help our children regulate those emotions and move those big feelings in a healthy way?
Okay. Okay. So I think this is as a rule of thumb, I would even say just with us working with people in general, is validate the feelings first
Mhm.
or recognize them. It does not mean you're agreeing with your child. It does not mean that you're letting them get away with anything, So with your daughter, right? Like she was crying because she wanted to unbuckle her belt and stuff. And obviously you're not agreeing with her that like yes it's so horrible, it's such a tragedy that you can't take off your seatbelt because as a mom logically like no, or that's just a big no. Right.
Mhm.
So it's not that you're agreeing with them, you're just validating their experience. No matter what you say to her, in her mind and all our toddlers' minds, this is their reality. This is their experience. That logic is out the window, as we mentioned, right? So it's like, wow, yeah, you're really sad because you want to take that seatbelt off. And it's like, it almost sounds ridiculous even saying it out loud, right? But
Mhm.
it's just like you're identifying the feeling. Wow, you're really mad right now. Okay, I see that you're really upset. You really want to take that off. So you're not agreeing, you're just pointing it out, you're reflecting it, you're validating it. And that is such an important thing, even with like among grown-ups or even when your kids get older. It's not saying you agree, but it's saying, I see you. I
Mhm.
see you. And from a toddler perspective, you're teaching them emotional intelligence, really. You're teaching them how to label what they're experiencing. So even if, and again, it's not about being effective right away, but it's planting seeds of like, oh, I am mad right now. I am sad or I'm frustrated, whatever it is, you're creating this habit. So you're validating that experience. In most cases, what that does is that like it brings down the guard from the parent to the child, where it's like, oh, wow, okay, no, you really see me. It kind of throws them off even because we're so used to as parents, maybe from what we've seen or what we've seen growing up in our own homes is like this power struggle of like, take off that seatbelt. No, no, no. Like, I mean, don't take off that seatbelt, right? And it's like, no, I want to, you got to keep it on because you got to be safe. And we go into that logical explaining and we get more frustrated because we're like, oh my gosh, like,
Mhm.
dude, seriously, like, do you want to get in a car accident? And shoot, I have those moments where I'm saying it, like, do you want to get hurt? Because like, why are you taking off your seatbelt, right? And it's like, but that's why the logic goes out the window. They're not going to really be receptive to it. But if you're able to match their energy or at least like validate it, it's like, oh, okay, you see me. This
Mhm.
is weird. Why is mom like
Yeah.
understanding me all of a sudden, Again, so that's the first thing. Second thing is hold a boundary, right? So just because you're recognizing their feelings or validating it, even if you don't agree with it, right? Like you are really sad because you want to take the seatbelt off. Um, it's like, but I have to keep you safe, so we're gonna keep it on right now, or I'm gonna keep my seatbelt on. And we're crying because maybe they're disappointed from the boundary. That's natural. That's what kids and toddlers do. They're gonna test boundaries. That's all normal. It's not because you're failing or that you said the wrong thing in the moment or that you're being too soft. It is just by design, with the kids and their development. So maintain that boundary. Try to find that regulation, right? Like, okay, like you're really upset. Yep, I know. And we're still not going to pull over and take off that seatbelt. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the seatbelt analogy because now I can work with it, right?
Mhm. Right. It is.
Uh, yeah. And then the last thing I would say and is offer an alternative. So, because here's the thing, we get caught up so easily, especially with toddlers, because they're so impulsive. They're about to touch that hot stove, right? Or they're about to get that marker and write it on the wall or whatever, right? And naturally, we're going to be like, hey, don't do that behavior. Don't write on the wall. Put that marker down. Well, actually, no, that's kind of a giveaway of what I'm about to say. Don't write them, don't write on the wall, don't take off your seatbelt, whatever. And especially with toddlers, and I forgot where I heard this, but it was like some research development that they actually don't fully understand the word no
Mhm.
at a certain point in their toddlerhood. So they're more receptive to like a direct behavior alternative. So for example, coming back to the seatbelt, uh, and I don't know how effective it'll be. It's trial and error. So, this parenting thing, it's not perfect every time.
Mhm.
But saying like, wow, you're really upset. You want to take that seatbelt off. Let's listen to a song
Mhm.
or what's out the window. So you're just kind of like giving them something else to do or direct that behavior. Like, wow, you're really mad. If they're holding a stuffy, let's throw it on the floor. You're really mad. Throw it on the floor. Or you could kick the back. I'm not saying this should be the whole time.
Mhm.
Kick the back of your seat. You're so upset. So you're giving them something that's realistic and within their range. So earlier I said, oh, put the marker down. That's the giveaway. So instead of, hey, don't draw on the wall, it's like their mind is like, so then what? So
Mhm.
it's more about like, put the marker down or draw on paper, please. Draw on this paper. So you're giving them something that's within their reach. It's not just like, don't do this, don't do that, because again, their problem solving skills aren't fully developed. So
Yeah.
try it out, see if it works.
Mhm.
But that is one thing. So just validate, put the boundary, and offer an alternative, I would say is like the three ways of breaking it down.
Yeah, I love that little three step because it does take practice to move like I said, like from just reacting to what we're seeing to
Mhm.
responding and like, okay, I'm gonna have to like I have to teach her, right? Like it's part
Yeah,
of our job and
yeah.
it's important, but if we weren't taught that, then it's kind of like multiple layers of work, just like, okay, I'm doing
Oh
this,
yeah.
and this is all I'm gonna try, like just those three steps, just the three steps.
Mhm.
And 100% like the alternative behavior. We also went through like a hitting phase. So we ended up getting this
Oh,
Hands Are Not for Hitting book.
yes.
And I really like it because even though she still sometimes hits, like they have a
Mhm.
lot of like hands are not for hitting. What are hands for? Hands are for saying hello. Hands are for helping. Hands are for this.
Yeah.
So when she hits, I could just say like hands are not for hitting. What are hands for? Or I'll just ask her like, what are hands for? What can we do with our hands?
Hmm.
It's a little bit like she already knows. Like I know I'm not.
Yeah.
They're not for this.
Yeah, and if you could read their faces, my daughter did the full on thing. I don't know, yesterday or a couple days ago, just the angry like, and I could tell, and I think it takes practice to recognize it, but
Mhm.
it's so easy to take personal or seen as like a big no. Is that again, if you look at it from that perspective, that it's really their brain, it's not fully capable of like stopping that impulse control. It's like you're guiding them. You're saying like, no, we're gonna do this with our hands instead,
Yeah.
right? And I you got me triggered now because I remember when my daughter did it and she had this look on her face like it was registering it, but she was still upset about it, but also like a little bit ashamed. And I wasn't trying to be like, no, I don't hit, da, 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 but it's like, okay, you messed up.
Mhm.
That's not what we do when we're angry. It's okay if you're angry, but we don't do this with our hands. We don't hit each other with our hands.
Mhm.
So really, it is a practice for sure.
Yeah.
It
And I
takes a
think
lot of practice and
yeah.
patience.
Yes, yes, yes. So I think as those behaviors are happening, like an extra encouragement, like offer that validation to yourself too. Be like, it's okay if you're feeling overwhelmed right now. Big
Hmm.
feelings are hard. Or,
Yeah.
it's okay if you're feeling frustrated because, well, at least for me, it's like, okay, like if there is no, what is the word? Like immediate obedience, right? I feel like we were raised on that. Like you have to
Yes.
immediately obey your parent 100% of the time. There was no like pause or anything. So if you weren't raised with like, oh, I'm allowed to have a feeling like your kid isn't listening to you can feel disrespectful or like they're being
Mhm.
defiant, they're being disrespectful.
Yes.
I'm a bad mom.
Yes.
Right? I must not be a good mom because they didn't immediately obey me. But when you
Yes.
bring in that understanding, like immediate obedience is actually pretty rare in that developmentally, at least, like
Yeah.
appropriately rare.
And
Um,
if it is, I don't mean to cut you off, but
mhm.
it's probably coming from a fear-based place. Like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
And it's not to shame any parent, if their kid's like super obedient. Maybe there's other tricks or things, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
different
as far as
temperaments.
I know, especially in Latino culture, if you get la chancla or la faja, I'm full disclosure here, that was my upbringing, not every single time, but there were definitely moments, and it's like, yeah, objectively, and I'm not gonna, don't quote me on it as like, oh, this is the right thing to do, but technically, objectively, it is effective because it's scary AF for a kid to get hit. It's like it's not a good feeling. You go into survival mode, and so it's like, oh, how do I prevent that from happening again? Because that hurt or that was terrifying. It's like, oh, okay, I listened on first command. Um, cool, but in the long run, what does that teach, right? That our problems get resolved with this type of hitting or violence or whatever, so it becomes more of a performative
Yeah.
um act for the kid of like that first obedience is like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this because I want to avoid that, rather than like this over time built like genuine collaboration or cooperation, or it's like, okay, and like you said, it's very rare, especially with like toddlers, where you get that because they're not quite there. It's a whole life process to get there.
Yeah.
So especially when you take brain development into
Yeah.
place.
I was
Yeah.
actually listening to this, but I don't know if you know Dr. Mona de la Hook. She,
No.
she actually, I recommend her. Actually, have this book from Community Mental Health Days, Beyond Behaviors, using brain
Okay.
science and compassion to understand and solve behavioral challenges or something like that. But anyway, she has another book called I think it's called Mind Body Parenting. I forgot the
Mm.
exact name, but
That
yeah,
sounds familiar.
yeah,
Yeah.
essentially like a lot of that, just like nervous system connecting with the nervous system
Yeah.
and it's a relational thing, right? This is every
Hmm.
new child is a new relationship that we're building. We're getting to know their temperament and their quirks. What does it look like when they're mad? What does it look like when they're sad, whatever it might be, and then learning to meet them in that and be like, okay. Like for example, my temperament growing up, I was a chillona. I cried a lot. I was just
Mhm.
sensitive. I still am sensitive. But,
Oh.
like the generational trauma wording was stop crying, right? I'll give
Hmm.
you a reason to
Hmm.
cry about. So
Yeah.
I did learn, just keep it to yourself. If
Yeah.
you feel like crying, you're gonna get in trouble. So just keep
Hmm.
it to yourself.
Hmm.
I became a
Yeah.
therapist, and then, I understood like, oh, okay, it's actually okay to cry. It's not a bad
Yeah.
thing, but maybe
Yeah.
it's like survival, right? Like you don't want to look a certain way, quote unquote. So I've had to
Yeah.
learn, like, okay, if my daughter is crying, my impulse might be like, stop that. But my heart knows, like, she's having a tough time right now. How do I,
Yeah.
like, are we sad or are we mad? She's at the stage
Yeah.
now where sad and mad look the same, which sucks.
Yeah, they do. They do. They especially with toddlers, it's like
Yeah,
crying, yelling.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, are we sad? What do we need? Do we need a hug?
Yeah. What do we need? Yes.
Side?
It trips me out because I've done that a few times, and not every skill's gonna work 100% of the time. You might have to switch back, and some days you're just not gonna get it right straight up. Like you said earlier, like we're therapists. That doesn't mean we're perfect at this. You could try every tool in the handbook, and some days it's just not gonna work. And I just remember this one thing where it's like maybe she just needs a hug, and I just got down to her level. I'm like, do you need a hug? And then she just broke down even more, even though she was super pissed. And she just started hugging and crying harder. And it's like after that hug, it took a while, it took a few minutes, but like then she was like, okay. And I forgot what the issue was, but she was cooperative after that. It's just like, I just need to get these big feelings out and then we're good.
Yeah.
No disrespect, no nothing, just like, and now it's funny because the other week it was like, I forgot what was happening. She was really mad. She threw something and then just started crying and came up, she's like, I need a hug. And I'm like, all right, come here, mama. And so I was like, I hope this is good. Because like if you think about it, how many adults nowadays, like shoot, sometimes I need a hug, and it's like I'm really pissed about something, I'm amped up, but it's like, we all need those
Yeah.
moments of connection.
Yep.
Yeah.
See what it's seen, heard, validated. Oh, those are like
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
human needs, but we get upset with
Hmm.
our kids sometimes because again, we weren't taught that, and people aren't necessarily showing up that way for each other out in the real world too, quote
Yeah.
unquote real world. So I think sometimes people will be like, well, I'm preparing them for the real world because no one's gonna coddle them, no one's gonna be gentle with
Yeah.
them. And it's like, well, I hear you, and
Hmm.
I wanna establish in my daughter like a sense of like she's enough. If her feelings are big, like that's okay. We know how to cope with them. There's nothing wrong with them. And
Hmm.
people aren't always going to be kind, but that's not a reflection of you. Like you don't have to
Yeah.
people please to like suck
Yeah.
in your tears, to like
Yeah. Yeah.
look others okay. So it's like I'm preparing her for the world also. It might
Yeah.
not look the same way. I'm not preparing
Yeah.
for her to people to like hit her or be unkind to her, which sometimes
Yeah.
that's what we do. We're like, and I think about like why our violence is so high in our country and in our world. It's like
Hmm.
because we teach our kids that like
Problems get solved.
by violence. And it's
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
taboo and controversial because I mean I'm Christian too, right? So I think
Hmm.
sometimes just want to throw this in there. Like
Mm.
sometimes people will quote scripture, right? Like spare the rod,
Yeah.
child. And I'm at the place where I'm like, yes, I'm Christian. I read the same text, and also like, what would Jesus do? Because if I'm
Yeah.
Christian, I say that I want to model the fruits of spirit. And
Yeah.
I think interpretation matters because
Yeah.
I'm like, the rod was used to guide and direct the sheep. It wasn't used to hit the sheep. The rod
Hmm.
was used to hit the wolves from attacking the sheep. So it's
Oh.
like the way I've interpreted that scripture is make sure I guide my child, like so
Mm.
that she's not spoiled. Make sure to
Wow.
encourage her and direct her, not just make sure you hit your child so they listen. It's like,
Yeah. And then think about it, like if in the professional world, yeah, it's gonna be hard. We can't control that. But it's like if you get into like some sort of disciplinary situation because you didn't do something right at work, or there was behavior, conduct, or just like a mistake you did, is your boss gonna come up to you and like hit you?
yeah.
Why is that? Why
Yeah.
is that, right?
Exactly.
So so it's really about also applying respect and dignity to your child too, you know? Yes, it's not okay for them to hit us. Got that loud and clear. And, that's absolutely right. It's not okay for kids to hit us. But we are the adults,
Yeah.
right? So what are we trying to model for them? And yeah, so I think it's controversial because I know a lot of parents are like, nope, I still hit my kid, da, da, da. And
Mhm.
I see it, but when you see the longer term effects of what is being taught, it's by force, and then that creates more disconnection, more misunderstanding, and
Yeah.
Lord knows how much misunderstanding is going on in the world right now, and I'm not even that religious, but like, I'm just saying it's a lot. So if we could start developing some skills of like basic ways to connect, even if we disagree, there are ways we could do this. We could still hold a boundary. We're not being permissive parents. There's a whole
Yeah.
difference between that and gentle parenting. So we could really guide our kids to be problem solvers, but also to know that whatever is out there, we can't change it, but we can create the safety in the home that they always know that they could come back and be their full selves in our home.
Yeah, and to
So,
bring that little light out there. And I
yeah.
think that's what I try to encourage. Like my job is to fill my daughter with as much like confidence and light and like goodness that I can. And then like
Yeah.
we'll put that out into the world. If somebody is mean or unkind, like that's not a reflection of your heart. That's something
Mhm.
you're going through. We don't know, right? But and I know like again, I'm for sure we're not telling people you need to parent like this, you need to, like that, whatever it might be. It's just an encouragement. Like there's different ways that we're learning that we can parent. And
Mhm.
I think the cool thing about postpartum, which I love it so much, is like I feel like the season of learning what kind of parent do I want to be? Like, what did I
Mhm.
learn about what is good discipline? Because I know like there's positive discipline, and I've always, back in my community mental health, I love that. It's firm and fair. There's boundaries, there's structure, there's
Yeah.
routine, but it's also like for me, it's like it's right now we're not hitting our child, right? So it's like there's no spanking in there. There's like other ways to teach her, but it's been a learning curve because I've had to learn how do I like teach her at this age. But I know because I worked in community mental health and I saw the teenagers, whereas like at one point they got too big to hit. So the parents felt like, well, I can't parent
Yes.
anymore. So I'm
Where
like,
do we
there's
go
more
from
tool.
here?
There's
Hmm.
more than just
Hmm.
one way to parent. If you want to keep that in your toolkit, that's up to you, but there's other ways. But
Yeah.
a lot of that does start internally. Like, okay, when I was going through this, how would I have wanted my parents to react to me? Sometimes even that we already have like an internal intuition of like, maybe just asking me why I was so mad instead of being like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Órale, llorar, limpia algo," like.
Yeah. Yeah. What it would have meant for you at the time too, right? And it's not to judge our parents either, because there was also survival modes there, right? Like with that Olympiad, maybe there wasn't enough time, there wasn't enough resources. It's like that's something too that comes up culturally, is like, especially first gen children of immigrants, is like we gotta survive. Like, we don't have time for your feelings. Get your shoes on and let's go,
Yeah,
right? So it's just also honoring that it doesn't mean that our parents were like inherently bad people,
yeah,
or that, that they were less than because they, you know what I mean? But if there's more to learn, why not? If there's a way of doing it better than before, why not? So I
exactly.
think that's one of the things I always come with, especially with my first gen clients, is like, look, it's not really about judging the past or like hating our parents, because there's a lot that we did learn that can help, but there are other things that were harmful in the long run, and we didn't realize it until we were adults. So now that you know what you've been through and you have this information and other tools at your disposal, why not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Can't break all the cycles. We can just
Yeah.
like do our best to heal here and there and again, just encouragement, definitely throw compassion. Self-compassion is the number one thing here.
Number one.
But
Yeah. It's because
like
you
it's
can't do it for others if you can't do it for yourself.
exactly. Yes.
Yes.
Giving
Yeah.
yourself that careness and be like, what do I care? And asking, how do I want to show up today? And just trying your best, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I know that, we're near the end of time here, but just want to say thank you so much for your time, for your education, for your awareness. I think it's a lot of good little seeds and nuggets. I hope hopefully people can marinate on and learn how to show up for themselves first and then for their littles. Did you want to share any last thing before we hop off?
Yeah. just well, thank you first off for having me on here. It's just so refreshing to talk with another mama who gets it and just is in the trenches. So that's always helpful. But yeah, no, just to reiterate, if anyone wants to connect with me, just check out my bio on Instagram, Sana Sana Therapy. You'll see like the different services I have, and if you're not sure, just let's consult. And then, yes, keep an eye out, keep an ear out for a free workshop. Did I mention that earlier? It's going to be free. It's going to be limited to, I'm still thinking between 10 to 15 folks individually sometime in the summer. I still haven't squared out the dates, but I will be posting about that soon.
Perfect. Yeah, make sure
Yeah.
to join our email list, whatever we got going on, we'll keep you posted. Follow, like, and subscribe if this video resonated. And thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. I want to encourage you to keep nurturing yourself and your journey in motherhood, or to share it with a mama that you know. First of all, I would love if you could subscribe or follow along to the Millennial TheraMom podcast, Instagram, and YouTube channel to show your love, to show your support, and to make sure this information gets out to all mamas and new parents. Secondly, definitely go ahead and grab your free Grounded Motherhood guide at millennialtheramom.com/free resource, or you can just look at the tabs on the website. Check out the Escuelita, our virtual learning community, also on millennialtheramom.com. And last but not least, you can explore the Grounded Motherhood Tiendita for cafecito links and few more goodies that are coming out soon, including a Spanglish poetry and journal. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you continue to nurture yourself and ground in your motherhood. Cuídense.